We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.
So you think that you can tell us how to live our lives, never questioning the source from which your moral code derives. You think that suffering is part of some great plan that's been devised. I wonder, what will it take for you to start opening your eyes? I wonder.
Welcome, everybody, to the Atheist Experience. It is October 23rd, 2022. It's always hard for me to say. It's about to be the 2023, so I got to catch up on that. I am Jmike. Alongside, we pulled somebody away from, well, I like to think that you go on these like these really extravagant yacht parties, with your boat life, Jim. So I'm glad that we could pull you away from, the celebrity parties that you go to on yachts and all that, and you could join us today. It's always good doing the show with you. How are you?
Not too bad. I wish that was my life, but not quite. doing really, really good. Weather
Let's make
is finally
that
getting
we
nice.
should make that a thing.
Yeah, we should.
We're gonna make that a thing. You go to these like extravagant yacht parties,
right? Yeah. Well, the weather is finally getting. I was getting worried there that and through October it was 80 and 80 degrees out, and then finally it turned cold one day, and now we've got some good weather. So some of that good fall weather almost into winter. But global warming isn't a thing. It's not man-made. It's not a problem. It's all as God ordains it. So I guess it's okay.
Yeah, that's a whole can to open up. Yeah, it's getting it'll get like 50 degrees in Georgia, and everybody's like, hit the deck. It's so cold. You're used to like 90, prior to that. So I get that completely. Well, for those that don't know, we are a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. If you like what we do and you'd like to support us, there are many ways that you can do so. You can become a member for as little as 99 cents a month by clicking the join button below the video, and that will give you access to special chat emojis or to get around the slow mode if that feature is up. As well as below the chat, you can see a donation button where the 100% of the proceeds go to the Atheist Community of Austin. And so we greatly appreciate that. We have some calls stacking up. So let's just dive on in to, let's go with Kevin. Let's go with Kevin in Georgia. Wants to talk about faith and slavery. What's going on, Kevin?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Doing good.
Good.
Yeah, so I wanted to jump right into it. Just to make it clear, I am a theist. I do believe in the Christian Yeshua, Jesus, God of Abraham. And I want to talk about how there are many different times where I catch this show. And as I'm talking to you guys, I'm also talking to theists too, because it's very frustrating when I hear them try to correct slavery and, the things that God allowed in the Bible, and hell, you could even say allowed today. It's frustrating because there's no excuse for what he ordained. Literally. I don't understand why we're trying to figure out, well, this was the reason or these people were bad. It is what it is. If we're going to take the Bible as it is, and what was that?
Yeah, I was agreeing with you.
Right. If we're going to take the Bible as it is, we're going to have to accept the fact that, God has done some, at least by my standard, which doesn't really mean much, but this is just my opinion, some really messed up things. And I think we can all agree on that, if we're being honest here.
I kind of have Can I ask a question about that real quick? I mean, I don't want to cut you off, so if you'd prefer to go on to get to a point, that's fine.
No, please go ahead.
So like for me as a non-believer, right, that I have this weird thing in my head where the first thing I want to ask you is like, in virtue of what do you think that those actions are wrong? Because it sounds like you don't derive a moral standard from that being, right? So like, do you think goodness and evil is separate from God? It's not like his nature, but it's actually something independent of him? Because that to me seems like you wouldn't need God, right?
No, not at all.
Morals.
Not at all. I'm being realistic. What I think God says is law. What he asks me to do is what I'm supposed to do. Do I do it all the time? No. Do I agree? No. And I'm just saying that I have an issue with what he's asked. But the reason I brought that up, so you guys can elaborate where I'm trying to go, is I think if you're going to be honest in your belief, you have to accept the fact that you're taking the good with the Bible, with the bad also. And as horrible and as horrendous as I think these things are that he's done, I think there's a lot of good things that he's done too. If I'm to believe in God, I have to believe that he gives me and all of us the life of breath, and my children and everyone else around us, and gives us the ability to be in who we want to be and believe what we want to believe. And I don't think you can find any religion, I'm going to be done so you guys can respond. So let me get this last part out. I don't think you can find any religion, any part on the planet when you can subjectively say this is horrendous, this is bad, yet here we are, still living our lives, having an issue with maybe different religions or even where we live. But why is it that we complain more when it comes to God? We have this standard that we don't even live by ourselves, whether it's in our own country, whether it's in our own family, but it's horrible. We can't take his good with the bad, but we do it every day in our own life. I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Well, I would like to know what you're using as your standard for good and evil. So I use human happiness of the population of humanity on this planet, and things that contribute to that happiness are good. Things that take away from that happiness of the population are bad. What are you using for a standard for good and evil to call anything God does in the Bible good or bad?
Well, I could say I'm using my own, but I don't think that standard exists without him. Personally, Jim, if me and you are talking face to face, I agree with you that anything that does not hurt us is seemingly good for us. We agree there, and that's something I want to make clear in this call. Is that
I'm not quite saying that. Although for the purpose of this call, I mean, I guess we can go with that for the moment. But I mean, where does the standard? I mean, where does your standard come from? If it's not coming from God, where does it come from?
I'm saying it is coming from God. I'm saying that doesn't mean I agree with it. Personally.
Oh, so God can. The God you believe in can do evil.
Absolutely. In my opinion, sure.
Is it better to do good or evil? If your God commands you to do evil, why is it okay to do evil in God's name?
Because I'm saying that it's evil to me. I think that's subjective completely. Even though I think that would be wrong, I don't think it matters what I think, is what I'm getting at. I think the fact of evil is irrelevant.
So with my the standard I choose, happiness of the population of the human population of the planet is subjective. However, I can make objective measurements against that subjective standard, and so I can be very objective about whether or not things like abortion, slavery, social programs, etc., are good or evil based on that. We could measure happiness of the population based on those things, and so I can make an objective measurement against that subjective goal. How do you measure evil? That when God tells you to do it, how do you make that measurement?
I don't, and that's what I'm saying is, in all actuality, I do, because I'm human and I've been brought up to believe certain things and I have my own opinion. But what I'm trying to say is, whether I do or I don't, it doesn't make a difference. And when I brought up everything else around the planet, I mean, I just cooked lamb today. with cheese, and it was delicious. Yet in another part of the world, I'd probably be thrown in prison for that. So that might be evil to them, but to me, it was delicious. So I'm trying to say it doesn't matter what they think or what I think. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm being submissive to God and what he says is right and wrong. And I include that good and that bad part.
So in World War II, when we tried all of the German officers for crimes against humanity because they were just following orders and rejected that defense, were we right to do so? If you're just following God's orders, should we allow you to do that, or should we prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law?
Yes, I think we should. And what I'm getting at is, I and you may agree that doesn't make us right. And at the same time, we're still doing that. Ultimately, we don't want to.
Do you not kind of see there's the kind of an issue, like, at least because it sounds like you're saying like under no circumstance should like X occur, and you think that's true, right? But then foundationally, with the God you believe in, you're saying he has reasons to either allow or to condone those things, whether it be slavery or whatever thing you want to pick out. And that seems to be straightforward, like a contradiction, right? Because like that just contradicts.
Okay.
Like the only thing that you're doing, which is what Jim's getting at, is you're at a level of obedience, right? When I talk about morality, thinking about something I should or should not do, right? If God has reasons by your own lights to allow these certain things, or he thinks that they should be done, well, then that's what should be considered good by your standard. And you're having conflict with that. You're saying, I don't agree with that, right? So instead, what you end up doing is defaulting to obeying, right? That's not morality. You're like confusing morality and obedience.
Okay. And I want to say this because I'm not like trying to brush that off. I want to give an analogy because Jim is really good at either picking part or explaining the analogies better. This is a bad example, but this is the only thing I can think of. I'm coming from a perspective of if I'm on a football team and I've got a coach and he calls a play that I do not like for no reason at all, and I have a problem with it, but I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to run that play, and I'm not going to do it out of just blind ignorance. I believe that having God in your life brings a lot of positivity. So just like I would believe that my coach is calling the right play, sounds dumb, but we win a lot of games, and it works when we do what he tells us to do. So I'm going to put my head down, and I'm going to do what's asked. So I might be confusing morality with obedience, but that's the analogy I'm trying to bring up here.
Because you're literally saying you think this is something you shouldn't do, and then you default to like, well, regardless of my attitude towards what I think is, a moral fact, I just default to the fact that some mind says it, which, by the way, wouldn't be objective. It would just be subjective. All you're saying is God desires this thing, or his nature is such a way, and that you're going to be in accord with that. But that's just like as subjective as me looking to my nature, right? And deciding what I think should be done. But you're just like actually removing your own agency from it, just saying, I need to default to this thing. It doesn't actually matter about whether or not something was intrinsically wrong, whether there was a victim, whether someone was hurt. All of that, by your view, will just be washed away with the fact that all you have to do is ignore the pain, the suffering, the commitments that are destroyed, relationships that are destroyed, and actually just favor the reasons that God has to have those things. And that seems absurd to me.
And what is God's game that he's trying to get us to win? What is that game? Because I'll go back to the analogy, not the analogy, but the reality of, German officers saying, hey, I was just following my orders. It's not my fault I gassed the Jews, right? That's not my fault. I was just following orders. And we said, that's not good enough. You have to exercise your own morals and your own ideas. And you say, well, it's to win a game. Well, they were doing that to win a war and to win some ideological battle they thought they were in. I mean, let's take it out of the game. Let's put it in reality. Do you think I was just following orders is a valid excuse for committing crimes against humanity?
No, me personally, I do not. And
then why would you follow a God who commands you to commit? Why would you follow a God that commands you to commit crimes against humanity, and has in the past, and seems perfectly capable of doing so in the future.
Because two quick answers. One, I'm not the head coach, and two, I feel like there's a lot of positive, but on top of all that negative that you're talking about, there's a lot of positive and there's a lot of winning that comes with following those orders. And I think we're doing that. I don't believe a soldier.
Winning what?
What was that?
Winning what?
When you're talking about the game analogy, winning what?
Yeah, winning what?
Is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
When we're talking about serving him and being with him in the end, I don't think God wants anything else other than to be served. Because I will admit, it's definitely a narcissistic complex. I think he wants to be served more than anything, and to be with him in the end. And I when I brought up we still do that, I highly doubt the soldiers.
See,
when I say we still do that, I'm trying to say the soldiers in our very own country. I highly doubt that the people that they go and murder have walked in their front door and killed their family. They're following orders too, Jim. What's the difference? What's the difference? We just agree that they're doing the right thing. We believe that.
Because we have said that that shooting other soldiers and military equipment is okay, but shooting at civilians is not. There's a real subtle difference there, but there's a huge difference when you're talking about the rules of war. And there are rules to war. If you're a soldier, you'd know. I was a soldier, and I can't quote them anymore because it was 30 years ago. But there are rules. There are things that we cannot do. We cannot fire 30 millimeter and 20 millimeter guns at people. We can only fire it at equipment because that's considered abuse. So there are rules to that war, and war is the exception. But, my specific example wasn't that. It was gassing innocent Jews for no other reason than the fact that they were of Jewish descent. Right?
Which I disagree with, yes.
Right. But you apparently want to hang out with people who are okay with that. You want to hang out with people who ordered Jews to go and commit the same types of crimes against the Canaanites and I forget the other two nations that they were told to commit genocide against.
The Amalekites.
The Amalekites. Thank you. So you want to hang out with those folks? Apparently, I don't.
But we don't. But we don't have to even go back. We don't have to even go back that far. I love America, and I want to hang out with the folks that had people in slavery for years and built a country on their back. I still think America's the greatest country on the planet, but that doesn't mean they haven't done some really messed up stuff. And if somebody said, hey, you got to go defend this place, I would defend it. And I'd hang out with those people. Yeah, I would.
The problem I have is like you can't really even say it's messed up stuff if at the foundation, right at the offset, you're saying God has reasons to allow this. You're just saying that, like, presuming that you think God is a rational being and he makes rational decisions, right? If you're saying he had reasons to allow X, whatever thing that you think is evil, well, then by your lights, all things considered, that thing should occur, right? That thing should, because he has reasons to allow it. So when you want to make this like conflicting statement, like I think it's evil, no, because under your worldview, those things should happen. They're required for the plan, right? I mean, think of Pontius Pilate.
You're 100% correct.
Yeah, so
you're 100% correct, and me.
You need to.
Me.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was my bad. You go ahead.
I was just trying to say you're 100% correct. And when Jim says you want to hang out with those people, I'm not trying to like wash my hands of what I'm saying right now. Makes it seem like you're going to sit in the back car while the people in the front seat go and do the drive-by. You're not going to shoot the gun, but you're going to sit in the back seat of the car and you're going to drive off with them. I just think we already do that. I don't think we have to go to thousands of years ago to point the finger to even bring that up. I think we're already doing that. And I promise you guys, I don't want to take up a bunch of time because I had a question about faith. Unless you want to add to that, I did want to get that question about faith out. So you guys,
why is it that your God doesn't seem to have anyone's desires or needs more than a human being would?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm not going to try to play
it. Is it more likely that God influenced those stories, or is it more likely those stories are just human stories?
I don't know. And I promise you, I'm not trying to get around that. I just feel like the way
Yeah.
theists and a lot of believers look at God is not honest and tell the truth. In that, I think there are many great things.
Kevin, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt.
God.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt because Jim asked like a really important question, and if you say you don't know, then I don't know like in virtue of what is it raising the probability that you think it's more likely that that is a product of God, right? If you don't know and it's just on a par, right? Nothing's, or they're both trying to race, but no one's even moved off the finish line, let alone, or the starting line, let alone got to the finish line. Then why do you think one of them's winning the race? Right? Why do you accept the view?
To make sure I understand his question, he said, you know, is it more likely that these are human stories, or pretty much that God carried
That it
out
comes from
that
God, yeah.
He put the thought behind these actions, right? And he's asked which one was more likely than the other. Okay, of course I could spend 10 minutes, you know, telling you why I think that is. You know, that reason would really just be my opinion at the end of the day, though. I think the bigger crux of the issue here is that
opinions are the reasons why you look what you furnish in your mind, looking to the world, right? What you think is evidence or arguments, all that stuff that furnishes your opinions or your beliefs, right? That's what you're presumably using as justifiers for thinking that it's true. But if Jim asks a question and you don't actually have something that raises the probability for it being on the God hypothesis versus the human-made hypothesis, then how could you be justified in accepting the God hypothesis?
Well, I would have to first accept the premise that God is real and that He does exist, and I have done that. So if I have to answer Jim's question,
but that would just beg the question, right? I mean, like I could just say God doesn't exist and it's more likely humans, and just not look at any of the data of religions or people making up stuff, and then I would be on the same boat as you. I would just be like, you know, I don't really care about doing the work. I'm just going to presuppose my answer and then start from there. It's like, well, I can do that with anything. Literally anything I can do.
You can do that, but the whole reason why I brought up this first topic was when I'm hearing about the negative things that the supposable God has done, and slavery probably being the worst of them all, which is why I use that as an example. I only brought that up to say that although I have an issue with that, and you too as well, it doesn't make a bit of the difference. And it doesn't make a bit of difference that if we feel like he's wrong in that aspect, okay, somebody could very well agree or disagree with me. And who's right seems to be like a never-ending cycle. So I don't see why that would be used as the only tipping point for why you wouldn't want to follow this being, when there's a lot of positive that comes with it. And that's why I use the analogies of country.
Look, I don't think me or Jim are concerned about utility. If like the lucky sock drawer gives me good days or makes me play basketball really good, like that's great, but that adds nothing to preserving the truth value, right? Doesn't make it true, doesn't preserve it being true. Nothing about that gains us access to it being true. It's just like it's utility for your mind, right? But I can do that with anything. I mean, before if I play like a show with a band or something and I'm nervous, I do things in my head to bring me down. I don't really understand like what that makes, how that reflects of anything true in reality, right? It only reflects things going on in your head.
No. I was hoping we didn't, because I know you guys got a long line. I didn't even get to the second thing I want to talk about. But calling you guys today had nothing to do with proving the existence. Calling you guys today was to shine a spotlight on the fact that we're asking questions as to why would you follow a God that would do this or allow that, but you're standing on soil that does different things and does this and allows that, and we're not saying a word about it. But it's not because it's so horrible. It's because there's a lot of great that comes with it as well. So if we're going to use that spectrum and that ruler for him, why not use it for the very soil you stand on too? That's where I get lost. That's the only reason I call.
Because my subjective goal of happiness for the human race the entire population, is a better goal than anything your God can come up with. I can base all of that on science. We could also use well-being. I'm perfectly okay with saying well-being. There are things that we can do that we don't need to follow your immoral God and do immoral things in the hope that we can do that good comes out of it, right? And that just doesn't make any sense. You can't, the ends do not justify the means ever. And that's basically what you're saying, is the ends justify the means. And no, they don't. You can do good stuff without believing in God or without following God. You can still do perfectly good stuff, and you can make your own choices. I suspect you're more moral than your God. Why would you follow anybody or any being that is less moral than you?
Yeah, and it's not like when you want to say it leads to the greater good, then that's a good thing, right? You can't say it's evil. It should occur. All things considered, that should occur. Any action, right? Any action where there's some negative consequence, vaccinations or whatever it might be, where the kids are scared, right? That they won't want to get pricked. Well, we allow pricking of a child, right? Because it leads to not having polio. It leads to a greater good. And so you can just put this in a notion of all things considered. When we consider everything relevant to the situation, it was a good thing. What I'm trying to say is, on your view, you just don't even have evil. It doesn't seem like, because it's just, if you want to say the ends is justified by the means, then those things should occur. I don't really see how you could have evil in your view.
No,
They're required for the greater good.
I get it. In the same time, I just wanted to kick the whole faith thing to the curb. And if y'all want to respond to this is the last thing that I wanted to say. We still have not addressed ourselves. And when I'm bringing that up, and I hate to be repetitive, but when I say we haven't addressed ourselves, is good or evil in our life right now, whoever's listening all over the world, I can point to any time and current events of things that are going on that myself and people that I may even disagree with would find to be completely unmoral and wrong. But they're not going to jump up and start a revolution. They're going to continue to live their lives while they have all these conflicting issues, because not everything is horrible. There are some things as to why they're not rebelling and why they're not going against. Some people are rebelling, obviously, but majority of us are not. And that's just the example I'm using. I know it might be on a nuclear scale when it comes to God, but there's no difference when it comes to, this is wrong and I don't agree with this, but I'm going to put my head down and I'm not going to say anything, because there's a lot of other positive things that come behind it.
All right, we gotta move on, but I'm just going to ask you two questions before we move on. Do you think that God could have created us in such a way where we all freely do good like he does?
I have no idea. I'm not going to lie and make up an answer. I don't know.
Let's say it is possible, right? Let's say there's no contradiction and it is possible he could have made that world. But from your view, you're saying he decided to create a different world with injustices, evil, sin, right? And there's a reason he does that, right? The reason is for the greater good, for the plan to come in fruition. It's required. Do you see why like an atheist like myself would go, whoa, okay, all things considered, he could have created a world where we freely did good, possibly. We can't identify a contradiction. Instead, he created this other world with like holocausts and horrible things. And once you break that down, you go, wow, okay, he had prevailing reasons to have such a world with those things because it's foundational. It needs to occur, right? That's why he didn't choose the other world. And so what I want to say is that I don't know how there could even be evil in your view.
But the example you just used, I could just turn around and say we have the ability to feed every hungry person in America, but somebody would die of starvation tonight. Why would we allow that? That's
a really good question. That's a question for society to answer. But your God has the power to do that all on his own. He doesn't have to convince 260, 300 million people or 3 billion people to do it, right? He could just decide to do it on his own, and he doesn't. Which is why I say you are more moral than your God. And I still have to ask the question, and I was going to end it with this. why would you follow someone or something less moral than yourself as an example to follow? Doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, Kevin, thank you for your call. Appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, call back in
And-
about the faith thing. I'm sorry we couldn't get to it.
Yeah.
No, I
that
appreciate
could-
your time, guys. Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you. All right. So yeah, I wanted to get to the faith thing, but yeah, it was a good call. It's just sometimes it's hard to get to two things in call sometimes because you're
Yeah.
so focused on like one part of the the first call for as long as you do. Well, hopefully we'll have him call in. That'll be the case.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that everybody is aware that to check out all the other shows that we have, like secular sexuality, which starts on it starts at 7 p.m. Central on Thursdays. Truth Wanted airs Fridays at 7 p.m. And then we also have our Sunday shows, Talk Heathen at 1 p.m. Central, The Nonprofits, which is on right before this at 3 p.m. Central. And you can also support us and all the shows at tiny.cc/PatreonAXP. Each show will have a different tag there, so make sure you watch the shows for the correct link for each corresponding show. And yeah, let's take another call. Let's go with Jim. Why don't you have it open if you want to choose?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you go.
Let's just take another theist caller here. Let's make sure I choose the right button.
Yeah, that's where I fumble a lot. I'm always like, don't mess this up.
The talk and drop button is too close together for comfort, especially when you got big, thick fingers like mine. All right. This is Aman in Texas, I think. Yep, Texas, who wants to talk to us about slavery in the Bible. Go ahead, Aman. You're on with Jmike and myself, Jim.
Okay. Hey, can you hear me now?
Yep. Yeah, we sure can.
I greet you in the name of Jesus Christ. I'm a born servant.
I greet you in the name
Lord
of
Jesus
his
Christ.
noodliness.
Okay, that's fair. So I was watching Matt Dillahunty, if you heard of him.
No, I've never heard of Matt Dillahunty, ever. What about you, Jmike? Have you ever heard of him?
No, never. Who is that?
We are joking, by the way,
So,
because
okay.
we
So
both
I
done
was
shows with
watching
him. So
Matt
yes,
Dillahunty.
we know him. And here's kind of the thing. I don't really care what Matt says. I want to know what you think. So, and then you're talking to Jmike and Jim. So leave Matt completely out of it because it doesn't really matter.
Okay, so continuously, I've seen a lot of episodes on Atheist Experience, and some of the argument was made about what the Bible said or what the New Testament said specifically about slavery. So I want to ask you a question. How many times have you read like the New Testament?
I have read the Bible twice, cover to cover, Old and New.
Yeah, and I actually
okay.
enjoy doing like textual criticism on the New Testament. So especially the Gospels. So I'm actually just like genuinely interested in that.
And I do consume quite a bit of content on that topic as well. So it's not how many times you've read the Bible; it's how much you look at the context in which it was written and the people who and the times in which it was written, because we don't know who actually wrote especially the New Testament. There is no evidence that it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Those are just labels that got attached sometime in the 3rd, 4th century. And they didn't really come to prominence until the 2nd century. And we don't see much of anything in the 1st century. So anyway, going on.
Okay.
Get to your point.
So do you know the difference between the Old and the New Testament according to the Scripture?
Why don't you just tell us instead of asking questions?
This isn't 20 questions. Just lay out the view that you think, and then we'll respond to it.
Okay, so there are some things that have changed according to the New Testament. So I usually watch Matt Dillahunty debating different Christians and
Okay,
the New Testament.
look, let me ask you. Aman, do any of us on here, me or Jim, do we look anything like Matt? We don't, right? Just go on. Don't bring up anyone else that you think. It doesn't really matter. Like when anybody brings up other people about what they think, it's irrelevant. We want to know what you think. I don't care if it's the president.
Okay, so
just tell us what you think.
So, okay, can I read this verse very quickly? Okay, so I want to read from 1 Corinthians 7. It talks about slavery specifically. So let each man in that condition in which he was called. Where you were called while a slave, do not worry about it. But if you are able also to become free, rather do that. For he who was called in the Lord while a slave is the Lord's freed man. Likewise, he was called while free is Christ's slave. So I wanna lay down first of all that all Christians, we consider ourselves as slaves. So my point is, when the Bible said that slaves be obedient to your earthly masters as you are reverent to the Lord, isn't it like a moral standard? Is it very immoral to say that, according to you? Because I see
Yes.
it, and I see it as very immoral thing
All,
or ethical
all slavery,
thing
all
to say.
slavery is immoral. All slavery is immoral. Yes.
Yeah, I also hold the pretty trivial position that owning people against their will is a bad thing.
Yes. And also, Paul encounters a slave and does not free the slave, but sends that slave back to his master. I think the New Testament is pretty clear that slavery is a-okay with God, the God of the Bible, and that makes him immoral.
I'm not debating that at all. What my
So what's
debate
the point you're
is-
getting to? If you could kind of streamline it, because I think me and Jim are trying to digest.
Oh,
what
my
your point is.
point is Christianity is teaching that if someone did bad thing to you, you probably respond good. It doesn't mean the bad deed is good according to God, but it just means that's how you show Christ according to the New Testament. For example, if a Christian is a slave or a servant to a
Okay,
certain
look, I'm just going to ask you directly. Do you think it's wrong to own somebody as property against their will? Do you think that is the case?
I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah,
How do you
So
have an
you're
opinion on that?
undecided on whether or not owning a person against their will is bad from your view? Like you're having problems figuring that one out?
No. I got to be honest with you. It's like I think it's evil when I think about it. But
Okay, so
there are
you're
some
more
things
moral
that
than your
I haven't
God.
graded.
So why are you
That's
more
not-
moral
that's
than your
true.
God?
I wouldn't say I'm more moral because
If you think
you
slavery
know-
is evil and your God supports evil, how are you not more moral than your God?
okay, so when a certain person do evil to you, you respond good according to the New Testament. It doesn't mean, for example, when someone slaps you,
That's not the question I asked. You're dodging the question. Would really like you to answer the question. If God supports evil and you think, if God supports slavery and you think slavery is evil, right?
Okay.
Why are you more moral than your God?
I have no answer to it.
Right? You should probably think about that. Because there are a number of things your God supports directly that are morally questionable. We talk about slavery as the biggest one. The blatant misogyny that is in the New Testament is another one. And here you are following somebody who is less moral than you. What does that make you?
Oh, I want to tell you about my background a little bit.
No. You got to answer the question. Got to answer the question. No weaseling out. What if the person you're following is less moral than you? What does that make you?
What do you mean by the person that I'm following? Are you talking about
The
the
God you
apostles
follow
or-
is immoral.
Okay.
What does that make you?
Yeah, I don't think that God is immoral, though. That's my
But
point.
God supports
I mean,
slavery.
he might be-
God supports slavery. You think slavery is evil, therefore your God supports something you think is evil and is less moral than you. What does that make you?
I don't know, maybe a little bit better.
Makes you evil.
according to
Do you
the
want to be
Bible.
evil or do you want to be a good person? If you want to be a good person, you can't follow your God because your God supports slavery. You've already admitted that.
Yeah, Aman, let me tease out like something that I'm kind of concerned about on your view. Suppose there's like two worlds, right? World A, someone throws a baby off a building, right? Something horrible. right? God exists in that world, right? Do you think something wrong occurred in that world?
Yeah. If someone
Great.
is thrown
Yeah,
out of
right.
the building,
Now, same situation, world B, take God out of it, right? We're just talking about the actual intrinsic actions, what ends up happening to the families, the suffering of the child, all of those things. Do you think it's immoral without God, right? All the things are still there, just no God. Do you think that action was immoral?
doesn't change the reality.
No, I'm asking you, do you think it's immoral in a godless
it's
world if
still
someone does
wrong.
the
That's
same
what I'm
action?
saying. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Still wrong.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
Great.
Still wrong.
So the reason I want to ask that was because you're it's like the last caller, right? You have a different standard. You're, at least in your head, you think that the things that God thinks ought to be done, you disagree. You think those things shouldn't be done. And then instead you lay down obedience and you go, well, I'm going to just like blindly follow this thing because I don't want to think, I don't actually care about, which is really strange to me. I don't know why the suffering or the victims or the relationships that are destroyed somehow gets knocked down instead of no reason at all, just to go, well, I have to obey. I don't really have a reason and I actually disagree with it, but I'm just going to go with it anyway. Do you not see like that to be a problem? Seems like straightforward an issue, right? You worship something like Jim said, which is immoral, and then you don't see the entailment that that's going to make you immoral because you agree that those things are immoral.
Okay, here's my take on that. Can I respond a little bit?
Of course, yeah, go ahead.
So what I think is there are things that I might think, I might read in the scripture, and I might think it's like wrong and stuff, but I think God is like better knowing than me. So that's why I follow him, because everything in Christianity, everything doesn't make sense.
So you think that there's justified reasons to so your position, let's just lay it out clear. Your position is this. You think that there are morally significant reasons to allow somebody to be held against their will for at whatever time period. Let's take women, right? Because they don't go free, right? Exodus 21:7. So if that's the case, right, if you make this type of statement, I mean, I don't, it's mind-boggling to me that you're going to want to make some type of statement where you think you agree it's a wrong thing. Yeah,
right, but it really sounds like what you're saying is that the ends justify the means.
That's not what I'm saying. Okay, can I explain that a little bit? So
you're saying that there is some way where that can be justified. I don't see how that works, but you're saying there is whatever reason it is that justifies it, right?
That's not what I'm saying. Okay, so what I'm saying is, even though you're free or you live in the 21st century, Christians refer themselves as bond servants of Jesus Christ. So I consider myself a bond servant of Jesus Christ, which means I don't have free will.
That's just to equivocate on what we mean by a slave, right? We're not talking about people that just simply dedicate their life to God. We're talking about people that are held against their will. Clearly not the same definition, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, it's the same definition, just so you know.
No, it's not. Look, okay, do you think that these are equivalent? Me owning Jim against his will, do you think that's equivalent? Is me being a slave to Yahweh? Do you think that's an equivalent statement?
Yes, because we are owned by God according to the New Testament. We are
only by their choice. Only by their choice, correct?
I understand what you're saying. So you're saying that if it's by choice, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yes, absolutely. If it's your choice, then it's okay. But to do it against your will, or to raise somebody in an environment where they think it is their destiny, then to be a slave, that is the same thing. Yes, that is evil and wrong, and your God supports that. And you're following a God who supports evil. That makes you evil. You support a God for whom the ends justify the means. That also makes you evil. Okay,
so I want to talk to you about, a little bit of my background. I was not raised in America and stuff. So
it doesn't matter about your background. I don't care about your background. I really don't.
We have a lot of callers. We got a lot of callers, so we're going to move on if you can't if we're not going to address
Okay, so you
criticisms
guys,
that we've
are
raised.
you guys? Okay, so, and I want to talk to you about, is this like where you address, secular sexuality and stuff? What is your position on that? I just want to know.
On what?
You also address, when I call it says, you address secular sexuality.
Oh no!
That's
Oh,
on
so
Thursdays.
it's a show. It's a show.
Oh.
You can call. You call in or listen to it first and know what you're calling in for if you're not familiar with the show. But
Right.
Yeah. No. I just want to know, because someone said like the purity culture was really a bad thing and it has like harmed and stuff.
Yes.
I just want to
purity
know.
culture
I've
does do
seen
harm.
in one of the shows, but you have to know that where these things are like coming from. So,
Aman, if we're gonna
We've
move
already
on,
determined that your God is evil, so it's coming from an evil God. That's where it's coming from.
yeah, and if we're gonna
Thank
move
you.
on to
Okay.
that topic, we're gonna have to. We got other callers, so I feel like we've kind of exhausted
Okay.
that. If we're diving into other topics, it doesn't sound like we have very much to in the tank here.
Maybe
So
I'll
I appreciate
call
the
another
call,
day.
Aman, but we're gonna go ahead and move on to other callers. Appreciate it,
Yep.
bud. All right, so yeah, it seems like it's when it gets empty in the tank, I think it's better to preserve the time for other people that are waiting patiently.
Without a doubt.
So if you shop on Amazon, you can support the ACA at no cost to you. Simply visit tiny.cc/Amazon Smile ACA and you can designate the Atheist Community of Austin as your selected charity, and Amazon will donate a portion of their profit directly to the ACA. We also have a channel that houses all of the ACA in audio podcast form. I like to say, if this is too much hair, or if me and Christy are doing a show, or secular rarity, that might be too much hair for you, and so you need to balance it out or just not watch it. So you can listen to it at tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. And from there, you can have all the latest shows from the Atheist Experience, Talk Heathen, Truth Wanted, Secular Sexuality, the Nonprofits, and then, this channel as well, if I didn't mention that. So listen. And we also have 3 Facebook groups that are run by the fans for fans that you can interact with. The first is the Atheist Experience fan group, which you can find at tiny.cc/FBAXP. And then there's also the Atheist private fan group, where you can interact with others without having those interactions appear at on your public feed at tiny.cc/FBAXPPR. And if you are a fan of putting some of your arguments to the test, maybe on other atheists or theists, whether they're playing devil's advocate or whether you're actually talking to a theist, you can go to tiny.cc/AXP fan debates, AXP FANDEBATES, and you can practice your skills. I think it's a really good thing. I mean, that's kind of how I initially reached out to people, was on like Facebook groups, and you do these like 10-day long debates, of one conversation. And then I think that's actually a good thing, because it gets you to the point where you can respond a little bit better in like real time. Sometimes that's, for some people, it might be a hard skill, or that they got to think about things for a little while. Nothing wrong with that, but I think that's a great place to start if this is kind of something you want to do or engage with, which I advocate everybody to do. Let's go ahead and take it. Jim, do you want to pick another caller? I like your selections.
Okay. Yeah. Let's we're going to take Charlie in Florida. If I hit the button right, hit that again. Oh, there we go. Hey, Charlie, you're on with Jim and Mike, and you want to talk to us about, straying from God causes misery and loss, and when we go back, good things happen. Oh boy. Okay, go ahead. Lay it on us.
Okay. Well, the thing about that is that, if you start, say, with Genesis, okay, that when Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, and they were expelled from the garden, it's because a big thing behind that. A reason was because thinking that we get to decide what is right and wrong is not the right way to go. It's that man can't decide what is right and wrong. I mean, that's what the tree of knowledge of good and evil stood for. Okay.
How could have any of them had knowledge of what was good or evil if they didn't have already eaten from the tree? How exactly do they know?
God told them what to do, and they did not obey God because they disobeyed because of the snake. But the entire point is
that's not an answer to the question.
Yeah,
how did they know that disobeying God was wrong?
Yeah, in virtue of what would they know that?
Because it was God's authority. It was God's authority. I did answer that. And they knew that God was
see, if they have no knowledge of good or evil, how do they know that following God is good and not following God is evil?
Right. How would they know what not to do?
But it was Adam and Eve. I'm not sure. They should have known what to do, but because they didn't
without eating from the tree of good and evil, how do you have knowledge of something if you don't? You can't have knowledge of something you don't know about, right? I mean, it seems kind of obvious, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they didn't know it was good. They didn't know it was wrong to disobey God. They did know it was wrong to listen to the snake until after they ate the fruit. Then they know.
Yeah, everything on their view would be like amoral, right? It wouldn't be like what they should or shouldn't do. It would just be like.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like God would have had to coerce one of them, right?
Oh. Well, but it all goes about what they felt.
Do you think that God, when he created the universe, was tripped up by the tree? You don't think he had like foresight because he's omniscient? You think like Adam and Eve, just like he's creating the universe and he's just like, damn it, I did not expect or intend for this to happen. Do you think God fails in respects to his intents? It seems like God is clearly coercing what decision they're going to make.
I don't know, because in the Bible, like God shows regret multiple times, and anger.
That's not what
how does an omnipotent, omniscient being show regret for things that he knew would happen?
Oh, it says,
and had the power to change
in the Bible before he floods the world. He actually said it. He actually shows regret. I got this edition by the illustrator called Robert Crumb, where. He does like this illustration.
It's not an answer to the question.
Grumpy.
It's not an answer to the question. God is omniscient and omnipotent. He knew that Adam and Eve would eat the apple, and he had the power to avoid that, and he didn't. Right?
Yeah.
So, what does that tell you about the story?
That God
wanted to punish Adam and Eve.
Yeah, do you think God would? So I mean, let me catch this out a different way. Do you think that God intended for the world to have evil and sin? Do you think that was part of his plan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Great. So awesome. Right. So he actualized the desire that Adam and Eve would have. He coerced them because they did not have knowledge of good or evil. They couldn't have been moral agents to know what they should or should not do. Right. They were amoral. Right. So clearly it just follows that God had coerced them because he doesn't fail with respects to his intentions because he's infallible. Right. He doesn't fail. So it's just the case that it should have occurred. It's a good thing. Right? He wanted the fall. You can't blame anything at that point. But
and take that a step further. God knew he would have to sacrifice his own son. Created a world in which he could.
Exactly. Created Pontius Pilate, which, by the way, should have put Jesus on trial. Right? Judas Iscariot should have kissed him on the cheek and said, this is him, right? That should have occurred. And in fact, those are good things under that view. because it leads to the fruition of his plan.
Could be because the ends justify the means.
Yes, and so it's a theme running in these conversations today.
Yeah, seems to
there's
be.
really no evil, given that they're all leading to the greater good. But Charlie, I don't know if you have a response, but we're gonna try to make this one short because it doesn't seem like you're really when you do address, you don't seem to address like what we're saying. You go into like some of what some guy wrote in a book or something. I think we.
Okay. No, no, because the point that, well, no, I mean, like, you guys are the one are kind of going off on tangents that we go on, but when we're saying that, but the original point that I'm trying to make is that, well, a lot of people, and even Satan hates about God, and God seems to tell us what to do and so much to do. But here's the thing: humans like to do things their own way. They like to be the boss of themselves. The boss of other people, and be the boss of God.
Do you know why I don't want to do what God tells me to do? Because God is evil, because he supports evil things. He supports slavery. He supports misogyny. He supports genocide. None of those things are things that I support. And I suspect that you don't support any of those things either. Would that be correct? Do you support genocide? Do you think genocide's a good idea?
Well, what genocide are you talking about? You mean God's genocide, the genocides that he did in Exodus, Leviticus?
Yeah, let's pick the drowning babies one.
Yeah, drowning babies, dashing babies against them. Oh, he also spent some number of bearers after some kids who made fun of the
Second
prophet.
Kings 24-25. Yeah, I was actually telling someone about that earlier.
Come on.
But they were. But the way I understand it is that those people were
they called a man Baldy, and he said, they called a man Baldy, and he called a curse in the name of the Lord, and two she bears came out and mauled 42 of the children.
Right.
But they didn't do anything.
If you want to talk about the genocides, God's all powerful. He had other choices than genocide.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you think mauling 40? I'm sorry. Are you going to provide me a counter argument that mauling 42 children with a casted curse in the name of the Lord is a good thing? Because that seems like the route that you're going to have to take, right?
Well, maybe that child goes to heaven.
Oh my gosh! All right, so we're gonna.
We'll talk to you later. You really need to think things through, bud.
This is a great time to mention. That if you've missed a lot of stuff on the shows, and maybe the crew has put together some clips that top the funniness of that, the ending of that there. I say that in some way, but check out this clip and maybe you can see what you missed.
Certainly there are divided families, Christ said that he was going to do that. So,
Is that a fulfilled prophecy?
I suppose so, right? Just look to the trees, Aaron.
I want to believe in the ice wall, baby. I want to go see the ice wall. Book me a first class trip to the ice wall. I'll pay whatever I got. Where the did we get our penguins and
bring me the ice?
The Lord turned me from my wretched ways, and I'm forgiven. And it's like, wow, that's so nice. So you can still do whatever you want, which it's funny that they claim that atheists are only atheists because we just want to sin and we want to do whatever we want when they do the same shit.
I hear you talk about it, and it's like it's an embarrassment to us Christians that we've had slavery in the Bible.
Well, it should be, yeah. I think the ownership of other people should be an embarrassing thing, yeah.
God is not anti-slavery. He's a proponent of slavery.
Why aren't you embarrassed by that?
Well, the difference between you and me is I am a researcher. You are not.
You're the researcher? Look, Shannon, Ben Dan's a researcher. We're just a couple of who don't know anything. So that's why I'm asking you, Ben Dan.
I'm looking at my degree, like, what a waste of money.
So I have some exciting news. If you can arrange to be in the Austin area between October 27th and October 30th, consider joining us in the studio audience at the ACA Free Thought Library for live broadcasts of Secular Sexuality, Truth Wanted, the Truth Wanted Halloween special, rather, which we'll get to in a minute. Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience. The doors open at 6 and on Thursday and Friday, and noon on Sunday. Parking is going to be, quote, wherever you can find a legal spot to park, and make sure that it's actually a legal spot, because if the lot gets full, we don't want to see anybody getting a boot or towed or anything like that. Had happened to me in Atlanta one time, and $75 I'll never see again. So if you can't make it this month, we will continue to broadcast live from the library the last week of each month. And be sure to watch the ACA shows and check the website to be updated frequently. So
and there's really nothing quite like seeing the show live and hanging out with fellow atheists. We've got one room where if you just want to watch the show, we can do that. There's another room where if you want to yell at the screen and talk to other people about what's going on in the conversation, you can do that. The weather is getting nice. There's some outside seating as well. So yeah, come on down and have some fun with the rest of us.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get out there myself really soon.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be really awesome. But speaking of the Truth Wanted Halloween special, here's a little hint of what's in store.
Last year, Truth Wanted took you where few people are brave enough to go. The most haunted room of the most haunted hotel in Texas, the Driscoll Hotel. This year, we're bringing things back in-house at the Free Thought Library for the first in-studio episode of Truth Wanted in 2 years. On October 28th at 7 p.m. Central, join me, Objectively Dan, along with ex-Christian Aaron and MD Aware for a night of spooky stories and good fun. And, if we can find any, maybe even some ghostly interactions. If you also happen to find yourself in the Austin area on October 28th, please join me at the Free Thought Library for some free Halloween fun. So remember, always keep wanting the truth, even if it can be a bit scary sometimes.
Yeah, and so I'm looking forward to that. It's one thing. It's like, hopefully we find a ghost, or they get something like an actual paranormal type of event, because I'm sick of seeing season 3000 of never catching a ghost on those types of shows. I think the atheist community of Austin is going to be the ones to do it on the 15,000 episode of trying to catch a ghost and never getting it. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and move on to another caller. We are going to go with Tyler in Indiana. Wants to, well, actually, I'll let Tyler kind of lay out what's on Tyler's mind. So how's it going, Tyler?
Good, Ma. How are you?
Doing great.
Excellent. So I just wanted to tell you about the time I was in a cult.
Oh, okay.
If that's okay. Yeah. Pretty heavy story. I already made a list of things, so I'm gonna keep it as brief as possible. But essentially, when I was a kid, for some reason I defaulted to Christianity. Maybe it's because my mom and grandma are Christian and my friends were, but I was never like super religious. But I had a close friend when I was in elementary school, and he was like super religious, and so was his family. And I realized, well, I'm always going to be religious, but I'm never going to be like him. However, as I got older, I eventually realized, hey, I'm a Christian, but I don't actually really know what it means to be a Christian, because I never went to church, and I didn't know much about Christianity. I just always assumed that I was going to go to heaven when I died because I believed in God and was a good person. So as I researched when I was like maybe 13, 14, something like that, I inevitably stumbled on the paradox of soteriology, which, of course, is the study of doctrine. And my first big mountain that was impossible to jump over was that some people were saying that you had to be baptized in order to be saved, while others were saying that if you are baptized in order to be saved, then you're not going to be saved because you're doing it as a work to get into heaven, if that makes sense. so I wasn't sure what to do because if you know in the Bible, there are many verses that claim that you have to be baptized in order to be saved, but there are others that are contradictory to this. So inevitably, I convinced my parents to start going to church with me, and I was baptized. But I didn't know the reason why I was being baptized. So after that, I just kept researching about my religion online. I eventually stumbled upon a video of a man talking about, he was an elderly man, talking about how he had a heart attack and saw himself going to hell, even though he was a Christian and saved and all of that. And that video was really ominous and serious, and it really stuck to me. But after a period of time, I kind of forgot about it. But weeks to months later, I remembered that man and was thinking, I wonder what he did differently. Like, if he genuinely died and saw himself going to hell, what did he change? What is he doing differently? So I actually did find that video again and went to his channel to discover he had thousands of videos, like over 2,000 videos. And I began watching and watching and watching. And I found myself in this kind of cyber cult. I started talking to these men on Facebook and others that followed him. Basically, he was kind of like a dandelion. He was this kind of head cult leader, and other people sprouted up that decided to, hey, I'm going to follow Jesus like this man is doing because I don't want to go to hell either. And basically the kind of things that this cult, quote unquote, taught was that you have to be perfect to go to heaven. You have to stop sinning completely. But the problem is that things that were sinful are things that every teenager loves doing, like playing video games, listening to music, watching TV, just anything like that. And practicing magic. I'm a magician. It's something I love to do, but even that was evil. And so I eventually I got to a point where I was, what's that word cognitive dissonant. Because I believed that I was going to go to hell, and I thought that I was an evil, bad person because of all these things that people were telling me every day for hours a day. And it was hell. I began falling asleep every night to the thought of hell, imagining an eternity.
So Tyler, if I can just real quick ask, because I'm not really sure how long, and I don't want to devalue like your story, obviously, because that's probably how it would come off.
Absolutely, yeah.
I interrupt it, and I don't want that to be interpreted that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to kind of streamline it, since we're getting towards the end of the show, we want to take another caller. Is this a recent type of thing of you coming out of this? Like, is this like brand new for you? Because that kind of helped me figure out where you're at.
So
headspace wise.
It lasted when it started when I was 15, ended, I got out of it when I was 19. And then around when I was 20, I became an atheist. Now I'm 25, but I've never shared this experience like publicly.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Well, so let me ask you, and I feel bad cutting that, but while you're telling this, I mean,
no, you're fine.
How do you feel when you do express that? I mean, is it like, when you look at that, do you think how ridiculous that was and you're pretty affirmed at where you're at now?
Absolutely. And I think above all, I feel really stupid for having thought that. And, even though my wife
you shouldn't feel stupid. Yeah. You shouldn't feel stupid. Right. Because you could say that was a dumb thing that I believed. But imagine you didn't have this contrasting element that you're working with, right? To look back and say how dumb you think that even is. You can look at it as a good thing in one sense that you probably help prevent you from going down a huge trail of that, right? And once you accept some type of magic or belief in something that's not really testable in any way, or at least just kind of comes from thin air. I mean, you can use that thing and pull it from thin air at any point to explain anything. And so that's a good thing. I don't think that you should feel stupid. You should feel really smart for for having figured that out, because I don't think, I mean, I don't know the percentage, but I don't think a lot of, I'll just say I don't think a lot of people do that in their lives, or even think about that, or it doesn't come, cross their mind in any way. They're not presented with it by another person. So you shouldn't feel stupid.
Yeah. And we do a lot just off of pattern recognition, and critical thinking takes a lot of effort and skill. So congratulations on coming out of it. And don't think of yourself stupid. You got wiser, you got better, and that's all we can do is continue to improve ourselves.
Yeah, we're gonna try to fit in Duane here, but did you want to try to at least since I cut you off, just continue with wherever you were?
Yeah, I have a couple highlighted things that I can just quickly talk about.
Sure.
I guess one thing is that every time I sinned, I was told that I was hardening my heart to Jesus by these cult leaders. But I realize now it's actually hardening myself, like hardening my heart to myself and the things that I was as a person. And like another thing that they told me was that I needed to go out and street preach. And I was 15 years old. So when I realized that I was inevitably going to have to follow Jesus like they did and everything, if I didn't want to burn for all of eternity, I got to a point where I was like, well, I just want to if I start following Jesus, I just want to get shot in the head so I can just go to heaven and be done with a miserable 80+ year life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a horrible thought to have as a teen.
Yeah, because at every moment you're probably questioning any decision that you ever do, and whether or not that sends you there, down the path that you're most fearful of. I mean, I get that completely.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's that.
Yeah,
well,
I'm definitely.
I think it's a good thing that you have a more defensible position than something like that. So.
Absolutely, I definitely still have scars from that, and mental scars that I'm still dealing with, but. I know it's your show, so I don't want to take up too much time, but I really just wanted to share my experience, I guess you could say, with religion, but more specifically a cult, because I recognize that Christianity is not like that typically.
Sure.
Although they do hold the idea that, I'm still going to go to hell, apparently, but,
Well, we're all going to hell in somebody's religion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're all going to.
Exactly.
I mean, hey, well, at least let me tell you, I appreciate you sharing that with me and Jim. That's something I come from a different background. It wasn't really religious at all. So it's very intriguing to me because I don't have any insight to that. So I appreciate you sharing that with other people, because other people who might actually be struggling, and that what you said might be resonating with them. So we do appreciate that. It is valuable.
Yeah. Well, thank
you. All right, Tyler.
So much for.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, Jim, you go ahead and pick. I think you have.
Let's go. You
have at least one or two in your mind.
Yeah, I think Duane here in West Virginia. If I can hit the talk button, so it'll actually take it. There we go. Hello, Duane. So you don't think God's a narcissist?
How you guys doing this evening? Really good show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So you don't think God is a narcissist? So can you let's set terms up here real quick. What is a narcissist for you?
Well, so say I had a group of friends, and one of the friends that we were out going and doing something together, and every time a friend said, "Yeah, I got this new guitar. I'm really happy. I learned this new tune," the friend would say, "Oh, I have this other guitar," whether it was true or not. And I played that song years ago. I know this song better. And every friend that did different topics or knew different things, that one friend seemed to have something better than them and was better at it than they would, and really describe it and make themselves look good. Like just full of themselves, a narcissist. And
well, that could be a narcissist, but it could also be somebody who's just very self-conscious and unsure of themselves, right? Trying to make themselves seem better than they are to bolster their own ego, right? I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be narcissism, does it?
Well, true.
Okay.
Well, that's true.
So,
it depends on the situation and perspective. I agree.
Can I read you? Let me read this definition from Mayo Clinic real quick. So signs and this is from the MayoClinic.org. So they're probably fairly authoritative on this. Signs and symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder can have an exaggerated sense of self-importance, have a sense of entitlement, and require constant excessive admiration. Expect to be recognized as superior even without achievements that warrant it. Exaggerate achievements and talents. Be preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty, or the perfect mate. Believe they are superior and can only associate with equally special people. Monopolize conversations and belittle or look down on people they perceive as inferior. Expect special favors and unquestioning compliance with their expectations. Take advantage of others to get what they want. Have an inability or unwillingness to recognize the needs and feelings of others.
I want to highlight that one later, by the way, Jim.
Yeah, there's a couple of them we want to highlight. Be envious of others and believe others envy them. Behave in an arrogant or haughty manner, coming across as conceited, boastful, and pretentious. Insist on having the best of everything, for instance, the best car or office. So how many of those do you think the Christian God fits?
Oh, I think the Jewish and Christian God did some of those things quite a bit. However, I think that giving this Old Testament, New Testament, Judeo-Christian, Western God the title of a narcissist would be a compliment. No, this God was mentally ill, psychosis, a psychotic, because one thing you didn't read in that definition was genocide and murder and slavery, which you guys had talked about with other people. And this God went way beyond those things in that definition. I think there's a big distinction between a narcissist and someone of a Hitler or like the movie American Psycho, that character, for example. That guy,
so the definition,
psychotic.
The definition I read is from the narcissistic personality disorder. So yes, it is a disorder. And yes, I mean, Hitler probably had it as well. I would imagine that a number of totalitarian leaders have those same issues. So, I mean, you can have multiple mental problems. You don't have to have just one, right? But
yeah, we can put a conjunction of these issues.
Yeah, I just
attribute them.
I just think that like a cake, you have different ingredients that create the cake. I think narcissism was just one of the ingredients with this God. I'm agreeing that the God did narcissistic things, but I don't think he was a narcissist. I think he was mentally ill psychopath, killing everyone on the planet except Noah's family just to prove a point.
Well, you took it a route that I wasn't expecting for sure. So I was expecting maybe going a different route, but no, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I understand and agree with your sentiment. If you're saying it's just one component, then I don't feel like the question. I feel like then you would just agree with the question, right? That he would have some qualitative property of narcissism, and then that's really all we're arguing for. We don't say that exhausts God's mental states.
I agree, but I think he was way beyond that. I think like that question of is he a narcissist is more of a compliment because he was way more than that. He was beyond. I mean, if you agree with everything in the Bible. He was beyond Hitler. I mean, he would be up to for trial crimes against humanity if he was in a court of law. So I think that that's one element that he was a narcissist, but it's not the whole picture. I think just my opinion, I think that would be more of a compliment just with all the other stuff he did. So
yeah, well, narcissists use people and throw them away and tend to not care if they live or die. So there's a lot of those things that go into that.
Trump is a narcissist. Donald Trump would be a narcissist by definition. But I think God way beyond that. So that's just my.
Yeah,
I see what you're putting down, Duane. I see what you're putting down. I mean, there might be like just.
I want to give credit. I really want to give credit to this God. I mean, I don't think if we give him the title of narcissist, I don't think that's giving this God the full credit of all the slavery and genocide and pain and anguish and killing your own son and, creating plants before sunlight.
Yeah, me and Jim agree. We're just not exhausting all of God's qualities by one word.
Yeah.
I think there's more words we could I could contact Webster and like be like, hey, we need to work on some new words to describe this like crazy amount of evilness. So me and Webster are working together right now actually to fit human language that actually encapsulates such douchebaggery. So
right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, hey, you guys are doing a great show. I love it. I've been watching you guys for over a decade, and you, a lot of the topics you've talked about, compared to where I was 10 years ago and where I'm at today, a lot of it is listening to you guys and saying, hey, there's other voices like me out there. And I appreciate that. And that's given me the confidence to, not worry about what other people think, to be just, not overbearing loud, but be confident of who I am and what I believe, and not worry about family or friends or what other people.
Well, hey, we appreciate that. I mean, it's the same, I think, for me and Jim. We look to a lot of other people that have presented things. It's not like we just sat in a room. We're like, I got all this stuff. It's like it's come to me naturally.
Yeah.
I was the first one to do it, right? We have the same exact. I think every host, right? We all have. It's a collective effort.
Unabashedly stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, exactly. It's a collective effort. I mean, like
Yeah,
to
and
pretend like
you
that
know,
wasn't the case. Would
you
just
got to be who you are.
dishonest.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, hey, Duane, we appreciate the call. Maybe we can next time talk about like since we're running out of time, I'd be interested in like maybe why you call yourself agnostic or how you use the term. I know that semantic debate's not like really that interesting to people, but I don't know. Maybe if you want to find me on Discord or somewhere and DM me, I kind of enjoy those conversations. So
yeah, that sounds good.
All right. Well, have a good one, Duane. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks. Good show.
Oops, I didn't mean to hang up there. Whoops. All right. Yeah. Sorry about that. I thought I dropped the entire whole thing for a second, so my heart kind of stopped. It was like, oh, hey, that happens. But no, we do want to appreciate everybody that tuned in for the show. We greatly appreciate that, but it wouldn't be possible without this lovely crew. If we could get the crew cam up right now, it'd be lovely.
They're more
because
motley.
they make the show possible for you guys, and they make us look good, adding all the type of filters that make our faces look a little bit more palatable, right? So we appreciate that. You can visit our website at atheistcommunity.org for the latest news on what's going on, as well. If you want to try to come to the Free Thought Library, you can check for updates there as well as on the show. Jim, before I get into some of these announcements or the ending announcements, did you want to have anything you want to say before we call it an end?
No, I think there was a definite theme to the show of why are you more moral than your God that you follow? But yeah.
Yeah, there was a theme. You can be sure to tell all of your celebrity friends on your yacht parties about it and all that. So we'll get you back to your.
If I had any, I would.
Yeah. So anyway, if you guys or if you're tuning in now, we do appreciate it. Go back, please watch all of. There was definitely a theme, so go back and check that out, or look out for the clips that will be posted throughout the week. Again, if you like the show and you want to engage with other people online, you can at tiny.cc/FBAXPPR, as well as tiny.cc/FBAXP. And I don't know if I mentioned this in the earlier, but we have a merch store. So I want to make sure I get this before we go out. So if you are interested in supporting us with the merch store, you can go to tiny.cc/merchaca, and you can get your favorite items, t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, and support us. Wear it out in public. Have somebody come up to you and say, what is that? What is AXP? Atheist. Make their Christian or religious, make that sit in their stomach. Like they hear the word atheist and they're like, what? Tell them, go watch the show. That's how we can engage, get more people that are going to call in, change their minds, advocate for great services like the Clergy Project or Secular Therapy Project, anything like that. So please have these conversations with people and flaunt the show. We'd really appreciate that. So Jim, from Jim and Mike, myself, we appreciate it. Have a good one, guys.
Have fun.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your lies.
It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.